Distant Drummer made it through the sea lock at Sovereign Marina, and I managed to squeeze out a smile despite the early hour. We were headed for Dover on a passage of around 45 nautical miles, taking us past Dungeness and into the Straits of Dover, one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. A solitary seal lolling on the mud looked up and waved us goodbye. Once again, there was an almost total lack of wind as we motored across Norman's Bay, the very same stretch of sea across which William the Conqueror's fleet of invading ships sailed on their way to Pevensey back in 1066. A milky sun made its way through the overcast skies, and the mist held off just enough to give us a distant view of the power station perched on the shingle shore. I tried my luck with the rod, but no bites. The AIS display started to get a bit busier as we approached Dover itself, and it wasn't long before the famous White Cliffs and the castle came into view. Unsurprisingly, the Port of Dover has a strict safety protocol in place for all visiting vessels. Essentially, the Port Authority needs 3 key pieces of information: who you are, where you are, and where you want to go. Accordingly, our responses were 8-metre catamaran, 2 miles southwest of the Western Harbour entrance, and intended destination being Dover Yacht Marina. Once in possession of this information, the port instructs you to call again once you are approximately 200 metres short of the harbour entrance, where a set of traffic lights is in operation, which will turn green when it's safe to proceed. How organised! Once alongside, we relaxed and took in the lovely views of Dover Castle, perched high up on the cliffs above the town. Not many marinas have a view of a Norman castle up on the hill there. In fact, this goes back to Roman times. There's a Roman lighthouse up there called a Pharos. Used to be 2, one on either side, and they also had one over in Calais on the other side. Yesterday we came in through that little gap there, which is actually a tidal lock, or a tidal gate actually, and in the background you can see the works going on to improve the western harbour here at Dover. Cliffs with undergrowth on them behind us, so it's quite a nice spot. So this is Dover Marina, and it has some great views. You can see the castle maybe just over my left shoulder, and an interesting feature of this particular marina, it's called Granville Dock, is the tidal height change. So right now it's about 20 past 10 Sunday morning, and if I flip my camera in a second, I'm going to show you the height of the tide looking at the wall here. You can see where we're floating, and you can see that bit of sort of scratched on graffiti at the top of the wall. There's like a concrete kind of thing there above it, and you can see the cliffs above us there. Not very pretty with the wall, but that's what it's looking like right now at 10:20. So we're going to take another look at this in about 6 hours and see how this has changed. The grey hoardings are there to screen off the construction work for the new harbour and container port. Although Dover tends to be en route for most people as they head for their holidays in France, the seafront and beach are well worth a visit. There's loads of interesting history and great views of the ferries manoeuvring in the harbour. This is also where cross-channel swimmers set off from. Banksy's iconic piece of Brexit artwork adorns the gable end of this terraced house. How he managed to get it done in full view of the A20, one of the busiest trunk roads in Britain, is a mystery. As we had visited the castle and the famous World War II White Cliffs tunnels on a previous occasion, we decided instead to head for Samphire Hoe Nature Reserve, tucked away at the foot of the chalk cliffs. To get there involved a walk along part of the South Downs Way towards Shakespeare Cliff, so named because it features in King Lear, in which it's described as being fearful and dizzy. We stayed well away from the edge. The views back toward Dover were spectacular though. This is the entrance to the Channel Tunnel. Well, sort of. It's actually an old service tunnel dug out through the cliff in what turned out to be an abortive attempt to dig a channel tunnel back in the 1970s. It's a few hundred yards in length and quite eerie as you are literally walking through the cliffs. It emerges at the base of the cliffs next to a ventilation plant for the actual channel tunnel. Beyond is a sliver of land formed from the thousands of tons of earth and rock dug out during the construction of the Channel Tunnel in the 1980s. It's now grassed over and has become Samphire Hoe Nature Reserve. It's a haven for wildlife supporting several rare species of plants, flowers, insects and birds. The following day we caught the bus to neighbouring Folkestone. The town and beach are definitely worth a visit. Lots of development has taken place in the harbour, where cross-channel ferries used to depart from until the advent of the tunnel. You can still see the ramp where the car ferries used to dock. It was also the jump-off point for soldiers heading for the battlefields in the First World War. Nowadays it's just fishing boats and tourists like us. We were delayed in Dover for several days due to persistent northerly winds, but finally a weather window appeared and we headed for Ramsgate, our penultimate destination, just a short hop of about 15 nautical miles. Needless to say, exactly the same rules had to be followed in order to depart from Dover. We waited as instructed by the Knuckle Lighthouse inside the outer harbour wall. Our exit was to be through the extremely busy eastern harbour entrance. After a slightly edgy few minutes, our VHF radio came to life. Distant drummer, you are clear to depart. Head due north through the eastern entrance and don't stop, came a calm but authoritative female voice. Nicola eased the throttle forward and we made our way through the choppy water. As we cleared the harbour perimeter wall, we could see 3 ferries all headed for the same 600-foot wide gap through which we had just exited. Thankfully, within a few minutes we were clear and could relax a bit as we made rapid progress along the chalky coastline, leaving the frenetic ferry activity in our wake. Once we rounded the corner of St Margaret's Cliff, the sea became calmer, and with Deal Pier in sight in the distance, we relaxed and enjoyed a very pleasant passage along the Kent coastline. We chose the inner route, avoiding the Sandwich Bay sandbanks, and cruised quite close to the shore, often no more than a few hundred yards off. We had a brief sortie ashore at Ramsgate and enjoyed a celebratory beer. Our long voyage eastward was drawing to a close. Our final passage would take us 40 nautical miles across the treacherously shallow waters of the Thames Estuary with its shifting sands and vast wind farms. We had planned and timed our route meticulously, and we must give a shout out to Roger Gasper, whose book, Crossing the Thames Estuary, proved invaluable in this process. Thanks, Roger. 5 AM faked smiles. We saw very few vessels. Just the occasional high-speed service boat heading for the London Array wind farm, a vast forest of turbine trees out to sea. We headed through Fisherman's Ghat, a well-known and clearly marked corridor across the estuary. Our GPS guided us through the featureless watery landscape. The only boats we saw out here were 3 yachts heading south in convoy. Their skippers waved to us as we passed. We also made way for a giant container ship, making its way along the appropriately named Black Deep Channel as it headed relentlessly for the Port of London. As we approached the River Blackwater, the amount of boat traffic increased dramatically. It was Saturday the 19th of May, Royal Wedding Day. We listened to Harry and Meghan making their vows as we negotiated the close confines of Tollesbury Fleet. Our voyage from Falmouth to Tollesbury came to an end on a sunny afternoon on the Essex salt marsh coast, and we celebrated with some face painting courtesy of the local mud. We felt a huge sense of achievement. It had been an epic voyage. We thought back to some of our favourite places, including Portland Bill, the incredible Chesil Beach, watching helicopter pilots being put through their paces, exploring Tudor castles, dropping the hook in secluded anchorages like this one off Brownsea Island, seeing Dee Dee in a whole new way, and doing our bit for the environment, hanging out in one of Dee Dee's old haunts in beautiful Dartmouth, bathing in impossibly beautiful double sunrises, braving cross-channel ferries at Dover, and finally summoning the courage to climb the mast. You never know what you can achieve until you try. Thanks for watching, and if you would like to embark on an epic adventure of your own, then drop us a line as Distant Drummer is for sale and ready to voyage across the ocean with a new crew. Could that be you?